Hey COP 1000 students, Dennis here. Just wanted to go from the beginning to the end of a possible spec to designing it to coding it. So let's talk about the spec first. So the spec says you are to enter the daily temperature as a floating point number. You need to make the assumption that you are recording temperatures in Fahrenheit. The program would allow the user to continue to enter temperatures until they type in a -999. This number, -999, should not be considered a temperature. It's just the flag to stop. As the user enters a temperature, you should display the following each time: current temperature in Fahrenheit, in Celsius, highest temperature so far, lowest, and average. Just a note. You need to read in a value, process the value, then throw it away. You do not need an array list or an array or a list. What do we do from here? If this was real life and there was a real client, we would ask questions. If we didn't understand, if we thought we understood, then we would choose a design tool and go about designing. I'm going to use an IPO chart as my design tool, and let's go from there. So my design, or my tool to do my design tool that I'm going to use is Excel. So in Excel, I write out I, P, and O, and then I say, okay, what is the input for this program? What is the input from this program? And if I think about it, the input for this program is nothing more than a temperature in Fahrenheit. So that's my only input. Or maybe I could put or -999. Because that's what they're typing, either a temperature in Fahrenheit or a -999. So when the program begins, first thing I'm going to do is input a value, which should be a temperature. I'm going to stop if I encounter -999. I'm going to make an adjustment for both the high and the low. So I'm going to need some way to adjust the high and the low. And then after that, I'm going to I need to do an adjustment for the average temperature. So get a number, or my input is a number. I get it. If it's this, I stop. I calculate or adjust both the high and the low. I adjust the average temperature. And then each time I display the output. Each time. And all I did was I cut and paste the output from the assignment. So there's the output. Input is a temperature. I get it. I stop. I adjust. I display. Input, stop, adjust, display. Sounds like the order that I need to do things. You can clean this up if you want. But there is in my opinion, a perfectly valid IPO chart to solve this problem. Okay, I'm in PyCharm, and the first thing I'm going to do is create a Python document. I'm going to keep my same project, so I'm going to right-click and say New Python File. I'm going to name this temperature.py. Oh, yeah, right. Let's put my fingers on the right keys. Twice. So I'm going to name it temperature .py, and here I am inside of temperature. Now notice when I go to run it, there's no temperature here. The very first time I run it, typically the easiest way is to click here and say run temperature. Once you do that, now temperature's I didn't have the screen stretched enough. I was referring to this area right here. At the first time temperature wasn't there, I came here, right-clicked, and I said run temperature, and now in my drop-down I could run any of these programs I've previously written, or I can run this temperature program, which I haven't even written yet. Now here's the beauty of this too. I can go into my old programs and steal stuff like this. Boom, boom, paste. What's this one doing? I just call it, this is the temperature program. So there's my header. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to define main. The last thing I'm going to do, well, not last, but the next thing I'm going to do is draw that line after main. And I'm going to call main. So now I'm set up in main. And now let's take a look at what we said we're going to do. Well, we said the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get a temperature. Let's call the value. So value is going to hold the current of the next temperature. I'm going to say low. So I think I left off with high. I didn't want to sit here and make you watch me type. Here's average, total, and count, and you could read what they do. Now this is declaring or defining my variables. Python doesn't require this, but it's nice because this is just like a little dictionary of what these variables are going to be for. Okay, so now let's take a look at my IPO chart. So what is the first thing that we're going to do here? So looking at my IPO chart, the first thing I'm going to do is get the value, then I'm going to test it, and so on. So let's start here by getting the value. So you make sure you put this inside of main, not down here. So the first thing I do is get the current temperature from the user. I also prompt them to say minus 999 to quit. So what's the next thing I'm going to do? I'm going to test to see if they enter minus 999. What do I test to see if they entered something other than minus 999? So what do I know if I'm inside of here? I know that they entered a temperature other than minus 999. So I check to see if I have to stop or not, and now I'm going to do this stuff. Now I'll do it. I'm going to adjust the counter here after I enter something, so count plus equal 1. So I entered a value, I add 1 to my counter. Next. If it's the first time, count's going to equal 1, and only the first time. High and low will equal that value if it's the first time. If it's anything other than the first time, I'm going to test to say if the value is greater than high, then high equals whatever value they typed. If the value is less than low, then low equals the value. Regardless, I'm going to say total, so I can add them up, and then later, when I do my output, I'll do the average. So back to the IPO chart. So far, so good. What's next? Display the output. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to compute the average, and then I'm going to display the output. I'm going to call function display the output. I'm going to pass it the current value, the current low, the current high, and the current average, which I just calculated. So here's that function. The next thing I have to do is find a formula to calculate, turn Fahrenheit into Celsius. So I went to the Google, and here it is. So how do you convert Fahrenheit to Celsius? And there's the formula. And if you look at various websites, you'll see that is the right formula. So I paused it and ran it offline, and I noticed I had this as an int. Temperature is going to be a floating point number, so I need to use the float conversion. Okay, so now let's talk about displaying the output. So I pass the value, the low, the high, and the average. I come in and I catch it. First thing I do is I compute the value in Celsius. This is a one-time label. And now, this right here, actually took a little bit of time to think about. It's going to be current temperature. I tab over for alignment. I use the format specifier for the 0th position, which is the only position over here, outside the format specifier. And here I come, displaying the number with 2 decimal places, and then the letter F, couple tabs, and here's the rest of my format. I don't want a new line, so this stops that, so that when I print the Celsius, I don't get the new line. I copy it. I do the same thing for the high, for the low, changing the labels, and I do the same thing for the average. Let's take a look when it runs. So I'm going to enter a temperature, 100.0 in Fahrenheit. Well, in Fahrenheit, we know what that is. In Celsius, that's what it says it is. Let's run something I actually know. I know in Fahrenheit, 32 is 0 Celsius. Now, I would check these values. I don't know, using a calculator, using the Google. I know 212 is 100. There it goes. All right, so far so good. The only problem is somehow we have to keep looping back and doing this over and over and over again until they hit a -99. So what I believe I have to do is I have to take this block of code, move it over, and embed it inside of a while loop. Not sure if I'm done, but I think that's all I have to do. I'm going to run it and see if that works. So here we go. So here we go. Enter a temperature or -999, quit. So enter some temperature. Current temperature is that. There's the conversion. And now I'm going to enter another temperature. This would be the real test. Notice I'm in the loop. And this time I'm going to enter 4.4567. Current temperature is this. The highest is this. The lowest is this. The average is this. And these are my conversions in Celsius. Let's do it again. Now my current temperature is 212. Convert that to Celsius. The highest ever is that number, Celsius. The lowest temperature in Celsius. Average temperature in Celsius. In real life, I think I would want to clean this up and make this line up a little better, but I can continue. Let's do one more. -5. -5 is that in Celsius. There's my high. There's my low. There's my conversions. There's my average temperature in Fahrenheit and Celsius. And now I'm going to type -999. Haven't tested this. Let's see if it ends. Have a nice day. Let's take a look at my IPO chart. See if that makes sense. We came in. We got a value. We stopped. We adjusted. We displayed. And then we put this inside of a loop. That's just that simple comment. I'm going to go back one more time, look at the code, and make sure that I did explain this. When I come in, I check my very first time. If it is the first time, I set my high, low to the first value. After that, I do my test. And that's it. 17 minutes, a little longer. Have a good day.